welcome. I'm Sheena and this is Perilous Prose. So today I'm doing something a little bit different. I wanted to do kind of a mini author talk for you. One thing that you will learn very quickly if you hang around my channel for any length of time is that I love series books. I don't care if it's a duology or if it's got 15 books and counting. Once I get invested into a world, I really want to stick with that world. I don't want to leave. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite authors, which is Gail Carriger. And Gail Carriger has 3 series that she has written so far. One of them is ongoing, and they all take place in the same world, but they're all spaced about 20 years or so apart. So I'm going to go with them in debut order, and I'm just going to give you sort of a basic rundown. I'm not going to talk too much about the plots just because they are series books, and it's hard to talk about the plot for the entire series without spoiling something. But I'm going to tell you more about the characters because for me my reading is more character driven. So a little bit of background on Gail Carriger and her books. She is a former archaeologist, so she's very good with research. She's very detailed in her research. All of her books are historical. They're classified as steampunk or steampunk fantasy. She refers to them as being a comedy of manners. Now, when we get into the fantasy elements of it and the steampunk aspect, they also deal with fantastical technology that didn't actually exist. The most notable thing is that they are fantasy. They do involve vampires and werewolves because, as Gail has described it, one thing that you learn when you're doing research, especially on history, is these weird anomalies that happen in history. How did this little tiny island nation of England manage to take over half of the world? And clearly the answer is that there was supernatural involvement. The first book in the whole series of books that she has written is Soulless. I know a lot of people on BookTube even have read these books already, but they're still really good. They're definitely worth a read if you haven't read them yet. So the first book, Soulless, is about a young woman named Alexia Terabati, and she lives with her mother and her sisters and her stepfather, and she is very pragmatic. And that is one of the things that really drew me to Alexia, because she's not the stereotypic emotional woman that you see in historical fiction. And in this book, there's an explanation for this, because the way that one becomes a vampire or a werewolf is by having an excess of soul, an excess of life force. And Alexia is a very rare creature that is the antithesis of that, which is she is soulless. She actually has less of it than most people. So when she is around these paranormal creatures, they lose their ability to be paranormal. For example, she can touch a vampire and his fangs will retract and he will no longer be burned by sunlight. And the supernaturals do not like her for this reason, because she could cause them very great harm. And she's trying to keep the fact that she's soulless under wraps. Her own family doesn't even know. There's a very short list of people who do. One of them is the flamboyant Lord Akaldama. I love Akaldama. He is hilarious. He is this ridiculous dandy. He speaks very much in italics and gives everyone these adorable nicknames. He's very fond of Alexia. He sort of takes her under his wing. He knew her father, and Lord Akaldama is one of the people that really helps propel Alexia in her journey as it progresses over the 5 books. So the story starts out with Alexia at a party, and she is attacked by a rogue vampire. And it's extremely rude and impertinent, especially since he upsets the tea cart. So she takes care of this vampire. So the people who come in to clean up after this debacle with the vampire are part of a magical law enforcement agency known as BUR, B-U-R. And it's run by this brutish Scot. His name is Lord Macon. He is a werewolf and the head of the local werewolf pack. And he and Alexia have a history, which I would dearly love to find out what that history is. It's not explored too much in the books. You just know that there was the hedgehog incident. Lord Macon and his crew come and clean up this vampire, and he and Alexia get in an argument because they always get in an argument. And the whole incident is what sets things in motion for the rest of the book. They start on this journey together, and the next 4 books, which are Changeless, Blameless, Heartless, and Timeless, those all follow their adventures as they are defending the supernatural community. And it's a recurring theme. Everybody wants Alexia dead except for the people closest to her. So she has to find a way of not only protecting her own life, but those of her loved ones, and also saving the Empire in her free time. So that is the central series in this world, the Soulless series. The next series is not really a prequel. It's not directly related, although we do have some overlapping characters from one series to the next. But this takes place in the 1850s. I believe the first book is set in 1854 or 56. I could be wrong about that. But it goes back about 20 years or so. And we meet Miss Sophronia Temenick. And Sophronia is a bit of a tomboy. She is the youngest of a very large family. And she's just getting into a lot of trouble, and because of it, there's a lot of tension with her family. She's always getting hand-me-down clothes and kind of being ignored a little bit just because her family doesn't want to deal with her. So one day this woman comes and says that she has been sponsored to attend this very prestigious finishing school. So Sophronia's family kind of jumps at the chance to send her away, and she is packed off and put in a carriage with the headmistress of this school. But something is not quite right, and Sophronia figures out very, very quickly that the person who says that she is the headmistress is not really the headmistress. She's actually someone who is much younger and is actually a student at the school. So Sophronia has to figure out why this girl is pretending to be the headmistress, where they're actually going, and why there seems to be so many people bound and determined to prevent them from reaching this school. And along the way, she meets another student, Dimity, who ends up becoming her best friend. And the two of them work together with some of their other classmates once they do actually get to the school to find out what's going on, because this finishing school is not what it seems. It is a floating dirigible, the largest in all of England, that travels around the moors of northern England. Sophronia and Dimity do eventually make it to the school, but the things that they're learning there are not your typical finishing school activities. There's no French, there's no classes in watercolor or needlework, but the main focus is on things like espionage and how to seduce someone in order to get information from them. And Sophronia's first book is Etiquette and Espionage, Curtsies and Conspiracies, Waistcoats and Weaponry, and the final book, which just recently came out, was Manners and Mutiny. And you can kind of see here I've flagged a couple pieces that I love in here. She has some great humor in here. There are some excellent one-liners, especially in the final book, but just kind of throughout there's a lot of, well, I guess it's not really a lot of diversity just considering the cast, but there is more than you typically see in books set in this era. And I think that Gail has really worked hard to increase that amount of diversity as she's been writing. We start out with a pretty narrow cast in Soulless, but by the time we get to her final series, which is ongoing, you've got characters that are going to different countries. You have more cast members of more diverse backgrounds, and that series goes back into the future and takes place about 20 years after Soulless. So we're up to, I believe, the 1890s in this series. And this follows Alexia's daughter, Prudence, or Rue, as most people call her. And Rue is very much like her mother, just as stubborn and adventurous, but she also has a reckless streak that she gets from her father. And Rue is even more rare and troublesome than Alexia, but she takes great pains to hide it, not always well. And so this series is Prudence. This is the first book, and I believe in February the second book in Prudence is coming out. And in this book, Lord Akeldama, the flamboyant vampire, who is a patron of all of the young ladies in these series, or at least he attempts to be, Lord Akeldama gives Rue a mission which involves going to India. So she takes a dirigible and a motley crew of her closest friends. They get kidnapped along the way and run into all sorts of trouble, but Rue always manages to get them out of it in some manner. Sometimes it doesn't always involve her being clothed at the end, but it's always amusing and entertaining. And they're trying to figure out who they can trust in this, who they can depend on, and it's just very questionable because there are at least 3 different parties involved. It gets very complicated. But along with Rue, she has her 2 best friends, Primrose and her twin brother Percy. And Primrose and Percy are actually the children of Alexia's best friend from the Soulless books. Primrose is a little bit silly, but in the best kind of way. She's also very organized and sort of is her second in command. She's very good at keeping people in line and making sure that things get done. Percy is very much the academic, and he brings with him just crates and crates of books, and he's basically their Google. Every time that they need to know something about India or air travel, they go to him and he can spout off an answer, or he knows the book where he can find it. Also with them is, I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce his name. I believe it's Kesnel. I could be wrong about that, but he is, again, the son of one of Alexia's friends, and he travels with them because he is a very good mechanic. He's good at building and designing things, and he and Rue kind of have a little bit of a thing, but they're not quite sure how it's going to go. Both of them are a little uncertain about it at this point. So I'm very excited for the second book in this series to come out. Like I said, it should be early in 2016, but I cannot remember the date right now. I'll make sure that I post it somewhere like right in here. That way you guys know and can look forward to it too. That is Gail Carriger. I really hope that if you have not read any of her stuff yet, that you'll give her a try. If you've got another author that you have just read everything that they've written and you have to get their work as soon as it comes out, let me know who that is in the comments. And I will see you next time. Bye!